Hi everyone, welcome to our Star 60 educational video. For those of you who may not be familiar with our Star 60 tool, this is a tool that I designed to bring our philosophy of oversizing into the world of 60-degree piecework. During the video, we'll be addressing how you create the basic shape, our Star 60 unit, but we're also going to be addressing all the other shapes that are covered in the instruction sets that will team up with the Star 60 unit and give you absolutely unlimited design possibilities for 60-degree blocks and 60-degree quilts. When you open your tool, one of the things I want you to realize is the packaging that we use for the tool is actually the set of instructions. And they're very comprehensive. We're going to go through most of the information on here today, but they are a little on the large size. So if this is cumbersome, maybe you're going to a retreat and you don't have a lot of space, you can also go to your home computer and you can print off regular 8.5 by 11 sheets that have all the same information, so you'll have those at your disposal. Let's start with what are we looking at when we look at the Star 60 tool. The tool has a tip and it has a base. Running toward the center of the tool are diagonal guidelines, and those diagonal guidelines are patented lines that will be used when we go to trim down the Star 60 unit. You'll also notice on the tool that we have horizontal lines going across parallel to the base, and we have vertical lines that go from the tip to the base. Those horizontal guidelines and those vertical lines are used to create some of the additional shapes rather than just the ones you see in the Star 60 unit, like the half hexagon and the full hexagon. The numbers that are on the edges of the tool are numbers that are associated with the horizontal guideline. So keep that in mind also. And there's one final element on the tool that we haven't talked about, and it's the flat edge trim line. And those are the lines that are here, and those are the lines that I'll use when I need to trim that third edge of the unit by placing those guidelines on there. And you'll see that a little bit more about that when we go. So we have a tip, we have a base, we have diamond point guidelines, we have flat edge trim lines, we have horizontal lines, and we have vertical lines. Those are the terms that you're going to hear me say. You can see that, all that information right in that set of instructions. The basic shape that we like to work with is what we call the Star 60 unit, and it's a unit that's composed of a diamond and then two side triangles. And like all of our tools, we're going to make things oversized and trim them down. The first thing that you need to do is determine what size you want to make. And the size of the unit is based on the measurement of the diamond. From the tip of the diamond to the tip of the diamond once all the sewing and all the pressing is complete. For example, the one behind me, we have a very large Star 60 unit. And if I measured from this point to this point on this, now that everything is finished, it would measure 9 inches. So keep that in mind when you're picking your sizes. For my demonstration purposes, I'm making 4-inch finished units. So my measurement when I'm all done will be 4 inches from there to there. When I consult the chart, it will tell me that for the orange and for the green, I need to cut my strips 2 3/4 inches. So once I've got those cut and I pull those onto my cutting mat, there's one other thing that I like to do when I go to cut my diamonds. Instead of leaving my strips folded, either wrong sides together or right sides together, I find I like to take my strips and position them so that they're both right side up or they're both wrong side up. Be consistent. But by doing that, when I cut my diamonds, what I'm going to end up with is a diamond that has bias on one side and straight of grain on the other, but they're consistent. So that when you sew them together, what will happen is you're going to have always a straight grain being sewn to a bias, and it adds stability to your blocks down the road. You don't have to do that, and if you don't recut everything, but keep it in mind. It's a good little trick. All right, so after I have my strips layered, they're both right side up. Next thing I'm going to do is set up a 60-degree angle on the one end, and for that I'm going to use one of the horizontal guidelines on the top edge of this strip. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm starting on the left and working toward the right. If you're left-handed, start on the right and work your way toward the left. But any one of those lines set up there is going to set up my first 60-degree cut. After I have that, the next thing I'm going to focus on are diamond point guidelines. And what I'm going to look for are the guidelines that are 1 inch larger than the finished size I'm making. I'm making 4-inch finished unit. For that, what I need to do then is look at the guidelines for the 5. The diamond point guidelines for the 5 are what I'm going to use to cut these. One on the bottom edge of the strip, the other on the angle that I just cut, so that when I cut again, I'm going to have oversized diamonds to give me an oversized unit so I can trim it down and clean it up when I'm all finished. Now the next step, once the diamonds are to cut the side triangles that are going to be sewn to the diamonds to create our star 60 unit. Those triangles are also going to be cut from a strip, and the size of the strip is listed on the chart. And for my 4-inch units, the chart told me to cut my side triangle strips 3 inches. So I've got a 3-inch strip right here. And for this purpose, don't really worry about whether your strips are all together, right side up, wrong side up, or facing. Doesn't really matter. So I'll lay the strip on the mat. And again, because I'm right-handed, I'm starting at the left-hand side and moving that direction. If you're left-handed, you'll start on the right-hand side and move over in that direction. The next step that you're going to do is to find the size that you cut the strip. It was a 3-inch strip. Find that size along the edge of the triangle. When I find that 3 and line it up with the base of the strip, there's going to be a little, it's not going to come right to the tip of the ruler, but there's going to be a little line that's at the tip of the tool that should line up with the top of the strip, allowing you to easily cut a pair of oversized side triangles. After you've cut the first pair, the next step is to take your tool, rotate that around. Instead of putting the 3-inch at the bottom, I'm going to put the 3-inch, which is the size that I cut the strip. It's a 3-inch strip, so I use that 3-inch horizontal guideline on there. The small tick line at the top, and make your second cut. And just like that, you're going to have loads of these. Don't forget, you need 2 for every 1 diamond that you're making. So now we're ready to head to the sewing machine and do our stitching. What I would do is I would put a stack of diamonds in the middle. I'd put a stack of my side triangles there. I like to have my blunt edge toward the sides of the diamonds. It makes for easy alignment. And generally, I try to set up a consistent construction method where I always sew my right-hand triangle onto my diamond first. But when you flip that triangle over to place it on the diamond, what you're going to find is that cropped top lines up easily with the side edge of the diamond. Now it's going to hang over at the other edge, but that's okay. That's our oversizing going on there. But the other thing that I like to do is make sure that I always stitch with the diamond on top, so I get a good look at the edge of the diamond more so than at the edge of the triangle. After I've done that stitching, I'm going to need to press that seam. And then I'm going to talk about pressing options here in just a second. But after I've stitched and pressed the first one, I would do the same thing with this left-hand triangle. Put the cropped tip up against the diamond, flip it over, stitch with the diamond on top, and give that a press as well. Now, let me talk to you about the options that you have with the pressing. There are 4, 1 that I don't recommend and 2 that I frequently use. 1 is where the seams are both pressed toward the diamond. I don't like to use that one because it tends to build extra bulk at my diamond points. So that's the one that I use the least or never. One of the options, and it seems very logical to do that, is to press both of the seams out away from the diamonds. Now that's fine, but what happens is these seams at the edges don't tend to nest when I'm putting them together. Can you do it this way? Sure. Do you want to do it this way? Maybe, maybe not. The other option, this is the one that we recommend in the instructions, we have both of the seams being pressed in the same direction. What will happen there is if these are being put together one to the next, those seams at the edges will nest and make your life easier. And the other one that I tend to use frequently is both seams being pressed open. This really makes for nice flat intersections at those points. So choose one of these 2, both in the same direction or both open. Choose these less often and you'll be happier with your end results. So once your star 60 units are pieced, realize they're oversized. That's a great thing. That's where the magic of the tool is going to happen. Now remember, we're making 4-inch units. So what I'm going to do first is locate down the center of the tool, the 4, locate the diamond point guidelines. There are 2 solid lines that are right beside that number 4. Those are the guidelines that are going to be placed on the seam lines. And for trimming purposes, it's better for me to tilt this, since I'm right-handed, a little toward the right. Left-handers, you tilt it a little toward the left when you do your trimming. But those diamond point guidelines are the lines that are now going to trim this to a precision size. One goes on each of the seams that are already sewn and already pressed. I'm going to trim up and I'm going to trim across, cleaning up those edges. That's how I get the point of the diamond trimmed. We still have one more side on here. To get that 3rd edge, what I need to do is rotate the unit, and I'm going to rotate the tool as well. And now what I'm going to do is focus on the base of the tool, and I'm going to focus on the flat edge trim line. There are 2 of those. They're broken lines that will be positioned again on the sewn seam lines and allow me to trim that 3rd edge of the star 60 unit. Now when I put those broken lines on there, the other thing that I want to make sure to do is follow that center diagonal right down through the tip of that diamond point to make sure that everything is as accurate as I can get it to be. And now I will have a perfect star 60 unit that I'm ready to build my quilts with. Now there are times when I decide I might not want to trim all 3 sides at once. Occasionally, like for example, if I were making a hexagon block and I would be needing to put these together and wanting to put them together to create a pieced hexagon, I could put 2 of those together, and what I would do here is trim just the diamond point. Leave that flat edge until all of the construction is complete and come back and trim those outer edges. So that's one time when I would trim just the diamond point. If I were making a block and I wanted to create this scenario, a diamond with the 2 edges matching there, what I would do is simply trim those back edges with the flat edge trim line and wait till further on in the construction to trim the other edges. So it's an option. You can either trim everything precisely, or you can leave some of the edges that can be trimmed down later on in your construction process. So once you've trimmed the points of your star 60 units and you want to turn them into hexagons and hexagonal blocks, here's something that you want to remember. You're going to start putting your trimmed star 60 units together, but don't put them all together as pairs, because if you do that, after you put that together, you're going to have to do an inset or a Y seam. Make sure that you put just part of them together as a pair and then add that 3rd trimmed unit to create a half hexagon to make your block construction easier. All you have to do is do that final seam across the center. Now when I did the piecing on these, this is an example of trimming just the points, so I have some extra fabric around the outside edges of my hexagon. One of the things that you should realize is that your hexagon math is different than your star 60 math. But it makes sense. If this is a 4-inch unit and this is a 4-inch unit, I'm now making an 8-inch hexagon. And when I go to trim this down, that's the number that I want to think about in my head, 8 inches. Because there are 2 different ways I can trim off those outside edges to make this be an 8-inch finished hexagon. One is super simple to understand. And that's simply to use the flat edge trim lines that are on the back of the tool on the stitched edge and come back and trim all 6 edges of the hexagon. But you can also, if the hexagon is 9 inches or smaller, you can also streamline your trimming. This is 8 inches. If I look at the tool and find the 8, the size of the hexagon, and place that 8, the diagonal guidelines for the 8, right in the center. What that's going to allow me to do, once I make sure that I've got not only those guidelines lined up, but the horizontal guidelines going across and the 1/4 inch guidelines there, it's going to allow me to trim 2 edges at the same time. And I can do those 2 edges, rotate this around, do the 2 additional edges, and those final 2 edges, then those would be the edges that I would come back and do with the flat edge trim line. Then you're going to have an absolutely perfectly sized hexagon with all the points on your stars being preserved. But think about making some hexagons with not just star 60 units, but with companion triangles. To find out how to cut those are cut actually the same way that we cut the side setting triangles. Those triangles are cut from strips, and the size of those strips are in the chart. You go to the star 60 size and you look across, there will be 2 size strips listed there. Strips to cut the companion triangles for precision, and strips to be able to cut those triangles slightly oversized. If they're cut to precision, then cut these to precision and your block is going to be complete and precise when you're done. If you prefer to oversize, then you'll have to come back and trim those down, kind of like you just saw me trim down with the star 60 units. And you know, don't think that the only thing you can create with your star 60 units are hexagons. I can take these same star 60 units, 3 orange, 3 green, and 3 companion triangles, and I can take those same shapes and create a triangular block. 3 green star 60s, 3 orange star 60s, and 3 companion triangles. And boy, the quilts that I can create with this unit just knock my socks off. Now, one of the other shapes that we use a lot in triangle patchwork and 60-degree piecework are half hexagons. They make the construction of the quilt a whole lot simpler. Sometimes you might want to build a block that has a pieced half hexagon section and have just a plain half hexagon beneath it. Sometimes you might want to make a triangle with a half hexagon as part of the equation. We've addressed how to cut these in the instructions, and we've given you 2 different choices. You can either cut your half hexagons slightly oversized, which I might do if I was doing this, and so I can trim on the whole block when I'm finished, or you can cut your hexagons precision. If this is cut precision, I might cut this precision as well and create that. But either case, you cut them basically the same way. You're using different size strips and you're using different horizontal guidelines on there. So make sure to keep your charts handy and pay attention to what they're telling you. So for oversized half hexagons, when I look at my chart for 4 inches, now this was a 4-inch unit, it's going to team up and make a 4-inch half hexagon. So to create a 4-inch half hexagon to team up with the units that I've been creating in the video, what I needed to cut was a 4 3/4 inch strip. Once I cut those strips, what I would do is look at the guideline that needs to go on the base of the strip. And for my oversized half hexagon, what I'm going to need to place on the base of the strip is the 9-inch horizontal guideline. When I place that there and have a 4 3/4 inch strip and I make my trim, I will now have an oversized half hexagon that when I put it together into my piecework will allow me to have some extra to trim around on the edges. After I've trimmed the first one out of the strip, we're going to do like we did with our side triangles, and that's rotate the tool, put that same 9-inch increment on the opposite edge of the strip, lining up the cut edge with the edge of the tool so I can make another cut and create those half hexagons, either precision or oversized. Make sure you're paying attention to those numbers. These are not things that are intuitive to any of us, including me, and I like numbers. And you know, this truly is the tip of the iceberg, because later on you're going to see a quilt that I made where I teamed up star 60 unit, a half hexagon, and then a series of star 60 units, up, down, up, to create a very interesting triangle project. Now your star 60 tool can also cut precision hexagons from 2-inch finished up to 9-inch finished. And remember, the measurement for a hexagon is measured from flat edge to flat edge. So I'm going to demonstrate how to cut an 8-inch hexagon that's going to easily team up with my 4-inch star 60 units that we've been dealing with. And if it's finished to 8 inches, the unfinished size is going to be 8.5 inches. When I consult the chart's going to give me two different things that I can use to cut these hexagons. Either a strip measurement or a rectangle measurement. Both of those sizes are going to be 8.5 inches. The rectangle is 8.5 by 10. But once I've got that strip cut, we'll talk about cutting that first. Bring it to your cutting mat. First thing you want to do is fold that strip in half lengthwise. Just a finger press along the fold should do it. The next thing is to consult the chart. It will give you the horizontal guideline that you need to place on the fold to cut that hexagon for precision size. For the 8-inch size that I'm doing, it's telling me to find the 8.25 inch horizontal guideline. And I'm going to find that guideline by looking at the edges of the tool. Follow down, find the 8, go to the next size, 8.25, put that 8.25 inch line right on the fold so that when you trim on either side of the tool and you remove the shape, you are going to have a precision hexagon that has the same measurement on all 6 of the edges. Now that's how you work with a strip. If you are working with scraps, you may decide that you want to create your hexagons with rectangle fabrics. Take those rectangles, make sure that you fold those lengthwise. The longest edge is what receives the fold, but you're going to use again the same elements, the same horizontal guideline. Follow down, find 8.25, place it on the fold, and when you do that, you're going to see it's just a little bit bigger than it needs to be. We don't want to put too much fabric out of the equation, but that is also a perfect precision hexagon with all the sides able now to receive star 60 units. If I can add my star 60 units like that to actually end up creating a block that looks like that. So the hexagons can be turned into triangles. Now there's one more shape that we address in the instruction, and it is these half triangles that you'll use to straighten out the edges of your blocks, to straighten out the edges of your quilts, and this is how you go about cutting those. The first thing you need to do is determine what size you need. These were made with 2-inch units, so I've got 2, 4, 6, and I can figure that, or I can actually just take a ruler, go to the center of my hexagon, and measure up, and see that I need a 6-inch triangle to fill that space. Once I know the size, consult the basic cutting chart that is on page 1 of the instructions and go to the very last column that says half triangles, and that will tell me what size rectangles I need to cut, and they happen to be 5 by 7. Now I need to make 2 rectangles when I do the cut because I need mirror images, so I've got to have them either facing right side or wrong side together. And to cut those, I'll take those 5 by 7 rectangles. I will take my star 60 tool, and if I happen to be right-handed, I would set this up with the 1/2 inch line at the top and the solid line being along the left-hand side so I can make my cut in that direction. If you happen to be left-handed, you simply move to the other side of the pair of rectangles. Place your 1/2 inch line at the top, your solid line there, and you can easily then cut with your left hand. But once I've done that cut, let me line those up. You don't want to ever cut from corner to corner because it's not going to give you the right angle. You want to use this method. When I cut those apart, I'm now going to have pairs of triangles that I'm going to be able to take apart, place on the edges of my block, and make it oversized. And you'll do this method anytime your triangles are less than 9 inches. Now, the time is going to come when you need those half triangles, those setting triangles, for a block that's taller or for a row that's taller than 9 inches. Here's how you figure out how to create the rectangles that are going to produce those half triangles for you. Measure the height of your block. These are 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches, so I know that this is 12 inches tall, but you can also just take a regular ruler and measure that. To that measurement, you add 2 inches. Now you also need to figure out the edge measurement of one of the blocks, and it's going to be different than the center measurement, but again, put a tool on there. Don't try to do it in your head. Put a tool on there, measure that, divide it in half, and take that measurement and add 2 inches. And if it's an ugly math, just round it up a little bit. Bigger is always better than smaller. And so for this measurement, I ended up with a fairly large pair of rectangles. And make sure, again, that they are placed right or wrong sides together. But I'm not going to be able to put my tool on there and have a line that reaches all the way. But I am going to put the tool on there to give me the correct angle. So I'm going to again place my star 60 tool with the vertical line on the edge of the rectangle, the 1/2 inch line at the top, and then use a much longer ruler up against there so that I can easily cut the shapes that I need. Remember, don't cut from corner to corner. That's going to skew the angle and you're going to not be happy with the end results. Now, before I add those half triangles, those setting triangles to this, I have to make sure that the block is the right size. And this block has been built oversized, and this block is actually bigger than my tool. So let me demonstrate how I trim this down using the tool. I'm going to have to trim all 3 points individually. I made this with a series of 4-inch finished star 60 units and companion triangles. And that's going to allow me to come back and use the 4-inch diamond guidelines on that top piece right there. But when I do that, I've got a whole bunch of other things that are also lining up. I'm going to have the guidelines here, but I'm also going to have the guidelines for 8-inch lining up along this piece. I'm also going to have horizontal guidelines lining up with seams in that direction, and I'm going to also have my 1/4 inch guidelines right along my points, so that I'm going to have my points when I'm all finished. And then what I'll do with my cutter is from about the halfway point, cut up one side and back down the other. Just about halfway, remove those pieces out of the equation, lift the tool, rotate your block, and do the same thing. Line up those 4-inch guidelines on the top unit, line up those 8-inch diamond diagonal guidelines on the second one, fuss a little bit with getting it square and straight and about as even as I can, and again, up one side, down the other to trim the second point. And you can either leave that on there, I usually just break it right at one of the seams, make your last turn and repeat the process. Diamond guidelines, horizontal guidelines, 1/4 inch guidelines, they're all at your disposal. Use them all to give you the best positioning of the tool. And just like that, you are going to have a perfect block that's going to build a much better quilt for you going forward. Wow, we've covered a lot of turf in this video, but I am hoping that by hearing me talk about the steps and watching me cut the different shapes, you're going to feel more comfortable with the instructions that came along with your Star 60 tool. Let me make a suggestion that you keep those instructions nearby for easy reference to the charts. The math in the 60 degree isn't always easy to understand. And another suggestion, why don't you consider making your first Star 60 project be the extravaganza pattern that's on the back of the set of instructions. If you want to make a big quilt, you can use 9-inch Star 60. Those are the largest size you can make, and you'll make a quilt the size of the one you see behind me. Or if miniatures are your passion, you can use the 1-inch sizes and create an adorable small quilt that's going to knock your socks off as well as everyone else's. So pick that tool up at your local quilt shop, or can't find it there, give us a shout, we'll send it off to you, and use that Star 60 tool for all your future 60 degree piecework projects. Don't forget to send us some photos. Take care, everybody.